I want to be Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Now, there's no real easy way to put this. I want to be Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Not like, oh yeah, I'd love to be a tool to like everybody. Or even like, I want to be the product of a weird brother-sister relationship. No, I don't. I want to be Joffrey. There's a complicated story behind this, so buckle up. One day, me and my older brother were sitting around, and we were just sitting in the back of a car, just talking about our mutual love of the show, Game of Thrones, and the series, the book series. A Song of Ice and Fire and Death and Dragons and Swords and White Walkers. It's a long title for a book. My brother and I were talking about how we love the show. And he said to me, out of nowhere, what would you do if you were Joffrey? It was a really, really complicated question, and I really didn't have an answer for him. Okay, I lied. I totally had an answer for him. And here is what my answer was. If I was Joffrey, I think that I would actually be a pretty good king. I may very well, in fact, be able to save all of the Seven Kingdoms through a simple... I'm not going to count the steps because there's probably a lot of them. First step. We'll total them up at the end. First step. I would not kill Eddard Stark. Killing Eddard Stark in the books and the TV show is completely Joffrey's fault. He just decides of his own volition to just kill Eddard Stark, and thereby plunging all the Seven Kingdoms into a massive civil war. It's bad crap. What I would do is I would not kill him, and I would proceed with the plan that Cersei and Eddard Stark had laid out. That plan is simply Eddard takes the black, goes to the wall to be with Jon Snow, yay, and does not die. I'd like to break the trend of Sean Bean dying in every film that he's in. That's the first step. Get that out of the way. Number 2. Do. Is do two in French? Or second thing I would do is I would negotiate for a prisoner exchange. Keep in mind, at this time, Bran is sort of, kind of still comatose after falling off the tower, which happened in the first episode of the first season and like the beginning of the book. So he's still comatose. Catelyn Stark, his mom, has taken Tyrion Lannister prisoner because, you know, if my son dies, somebody else should die too. And she thinks that the Lannisters are responsible because they did kind of send an assassin to finish the job of killing Bran. What I would do is I would negotiate an exchange because I still have Sansa. Arya's run around, she's already gone. I would exchange Sansa Stark for Tyrion Lannister. And as far as they know, I still have Arya, so they can't really do anything. So I would go up north, exchange Sansa Stark for Tyrion Lannister. Step 3. I would need to massively reorganize the Small Council. Small Council is a select group of lords or whatever who are in charge of running things. Hand of the King, first off, is definitely going to be Tywin. Tywin Lannister, my grandfather, sort of the best guy for the job. Varys, he will stay Master of Whispers. Master of Coin, Peter Baelish will be replaced because he kind of has too much of a connection to the Starks, because, you know, he sort of loved Catelyn for a long time. He will be replaced by Tyrion Lannister, which is why I really wanted to rescue him. Jaime will be removed from the Kingsguard for several reasons. One, he's really the only heir that Tywin wants for there to be to Casterly Rock. 2, Cersei and Jaime. Nastiness. So, to replace him, I would most definitely choose the Hound. Because he's cool and tough and awesome. Given the fact that I'm still Joffrey, and I dealt with the whole North thing, it will not actually solve all of my problems. Dang it. What it does is it limits them a lot. Now, there are only 2 people left that I have to worry about. The 2 remaining Baratheon brothers. 1, Stannis, and 2, Renly. What, I kind of have a plan, but I'm not sure how it would work out. My plan is this. 4, because I'm dealing with the 2, so I'm on 4. What I would do is I would promise both of Baratheon brothers that I will yield the Iron Throne and my crown to whoever wins. Then both of them aren't fighting me, they're fighting each other. So as they're both warring against each other with the Red Priestess and all that stuff, blah, 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 they would both heavily exhaust each other, and then I can just swoop in with the united armies of the Seven Kingdoms, because the North isn't in rebellion, Riverland's not in rebellion, Dorne, they pretty much sat out and on the sidelines for most of this stuff. Iron Islands really don't have a reason to rebel because there's not enough distraught in the realm to save them. So what I would do is I would just no. I would also, with the whole Baratheon brothers thing, because that's happening, I would tell them that they should fight each other. Step 5, I, Joffrey, would marry Marjorie Tyrell. This does two very important things. One, pretty much usurps any of the support that may have been garnered for Renly Baratheon to my side. So now the Reach is completely on my side in this coming war with these two alleged kings, because I'm totally legit and not born of incest. I totally am, though. So the Reach would be on my side. Then, really, nothing's going to stand in my way. If Stannis loses, then all I have to do is clear up Renly. If Renly loses, all I have to do is get rid of Stannis. It's really easy. Once they're the only threat left, it's no longer the War of the Five Kings, which is technically what the conflict is called. It's more like two guys fighting each other for a throne that neither of them has, while the third one just builds up his armies and kills both of them. I don't even know if that's a war. That's just like Thanksgiving. After all of that's handled, then two of the biggest problems are handled. Accusations of incest from Stannis and Renly, they're both gone. War in the North, not on the table anymore, although they may still try something. Even though all of this is still kind of iffy, I would still need to come up with a way to like make the small folk like me, which is another problem. And I'd need to come up with some way, my brother kept reminding me, some way of handling all of this crap beyond the wall, because there's a bunch of wildlings, rumors of White Walkers. What am I gonna do about that? Here is my brilliant and benevolent plan to rule as King Joffrey the Awesome, which isn't what I would be called, because I just have to settle for the Great. Pretty good. The Fantastic. Yes. The Fantastic One. What I would do after that is step 6. Step 6. I would reinstitute the Warriors Order of the Warriors' Sons and the something. They're pretty much in the books. It's not. You're not to this part, so spoiler alert. I'll put that somewhere. Spoiler alert. In the books, a new faction comes into power when the High Septon, who is pretty much their equivalent of the Pope in Game of Thrones, is killed. He's killed by an angry mob. He lives really lavishly, kind of like the Pope, and is always decked out in jewels and really nice clothes, kind of like the Pope. So when all of the people in King's Landing are starving, they get mad at the not Pope Septon. And what they do is, while he's riding them by on his litter, they tear him out and push him to the ground and rip him to pieces. A new faction comes into power. They call themselves the Sparrows because they're just like, oh yeah, we're just sparrows. We're not special. We're not anything cool. But we are the most plentiful bird. Apart, we're just sold for like a dime a piece, but together, there's like millions of us and we can do anything. New High Septon is crowned. He's kind of like Pope Francis now. He doesn't accept any of the money of the High Septon. He sells all of this High Septon's jewels, gets all of these cardinals and people who have been like in charge and really, really wealthy like the High Septon for a super long time, and he has them literally mopping floors, humbling everyone. It's sort of a socialistic thing, but everybody loves him. Literally everyone loves him. The books, Cersei, to negotiate with him, tries to give him back the military order of the Warrior Sons. The Warrior Sons are pretty much like a private army that only works for the High Septon. They're like Crusaders, except they don't go home and have a lot of money and stuff. They just only work for the High Septon. So I would reintroduce that. I would rearm the church, as it were. Although this seems like kind of a bad idea, making friends with the High Septon is pretty much an instantaneous way to have the small folk like me. Seriously, if your king is liked by the guy who is allegedly the mouthpiece of your gods on Earth, then maybe he knows something you don't. Maybe you should be nice to him. Plus, I am the king. Then, step 7. I don't know the French word for 5. My last step is to handle all of the trouble with the king beyond the wall and the wildlings and the coming winter and the ice in A Song of Ice and Fire. By the way, the fire is Daenerys. That's not a spoiler alert. That's just inference. Come on. Just catch up. I would then issue, and this is when I came up with a really good idea. This is the part I like the most. The Edict of 10. The Edict of 10. Pretty much, here's what it is. Every lord, from like the smallest lord all the way up to like the Tullys and the Lannisters and all the people up there, even the king, they must all send 10 men. 10 men that fight for them to the wall. These men do not take the black. They must serve for 10 years. Must serve for these 10 years. Every lord must also send a small amount of food to provide for these 10 men. And if they can't, other lords will provide for them, whatever. There will also be the whole matter of getting a lot of stones up to the wall, masons, stuff like that, to provide for and repair the castles that are in disarray. There are a lot of castles along the wall, but only 3 are currently in use in the Game of Thrones series and in the books. So they all send 10 men who serve for 10 years, who can choose to take the black afterwards if they wish. But they don't have to. These 10 men must serve, fight alongside the Rangers, whatever. They must obey the commands of their 10 commanders. The 10 commanders will be 1 from each of the 7 kingdoms, and then 3 shall be selected by myself, the king. 1 of them shall be from the warrior sons, the religious order, representing the 7 gods and all that stuff. 1 shall be a member of my Kingsguard, so I'm taking a loss on this. And the last one, my choice, and I'm thinking that I would probably choose it to be Eddard Stark. Since he is already there and he cannot be exempt from being at the wall, and he is a pretty competent ruler, even though he knows that I'm an abomination of incest. That's the best way I could think of to put it. Even though he knows that, he would still be a competent commander at the wall. And plus, he's a cool character, and I don't want him to die. Yay! So, that's the Edict of 10. What's to persuade these lords and stuff to send you men? They could just say no. I'm glad you ask, pesky person. The Edict of 10 also is this: every lord that sends the 10 men that the Edict of 10 requires is exempt from 10% of taxes. So pretty much they get a tax break. It's not a lot, but it's enough. And especially if you're a rich house like the Lannisters, then, you know, money. Lastly, what would you do after all this stuff was settled down, you ask? Well, I would conquer the Summer Islands. The Summer Isles are south of Westeros. They're not connected to anything else. They're really kind of fragmented. They can defend themselves all right from slavers and stuff like that, but no one's really ever made an active effort to conquer them, which is what I would do. I would send across all of my soldiers and such, of course, after the war with the 2 Baratheons is done. And after I send all of my soldiers and stuff out to do that, after I've conquered the Summer Islands, I would set up trade there, and after doing all of that, I would eventually pay off the loan to the Iron Bank, which is, like, massive. And after killing them, I would make my sister, who is Myrcella, I believe. She would be the crown princess of Dragonstone, and my younger brother Tommen would be Lord Paramount of the Stormlands and the ruler of Storm's End, which is the ancestral home of the Baratheons. And yeah, that's just about it. So, I fixed Game of Thrones.